All right. Hello, my friends. How's everybody doing? Personally, I don't know how I like this green shirt with the blue background, but we're going to roll with it. I realize now why so many people, when they go live, they just kind of like are at their desk, staring off into space, waiting for like people to join, right? I'm not going to do that. In fact, I'm going to read you guys a story while we wait to see if anybody else joins us today. And it's called The Three Little Ducks and the Big Bad Crocodile, written by Ryan, who is 11. And we're going to read this while we're waiting for people to join us here. The three little ducks walked into the savannah, and the first duck built a log house out of logs. Then the second built a tree house, and the third duck made a secret base in the ground. After the crocodile came in, he just came onto the scene. After the crocodile came to the log house, he said, come out, wherever you are, the ducks, the crocodile said. And the duck said, no, I'm not coming out. When the crocodile wasn't looking, the duck ran out of the back door and ran to the second duck to warn him the crocodile was coming. Don't worry, I'm not going to wait too long. It's a short story. Then the crocodile went to the tree house and said, come out now. The two ducks said, no, we are not coming out. Yeah. This is the best part. Then the crocodile went to the secret base. When the two ducks snuck, and then the two ducks, it says, then the crocodile went to the secret base. When the two ducks snuck to this, then the two ducks snuck to the secret base. When the crocodile got there, he went into the secret base and grabbed the ducks and swallowed them. Better show you guys before the climax of the story here. Right, there he is. The grand finale. After the crocodile slept in the secret base, he woke up and watched TV and lived happily ever after in his new secret base. So that was just, I couldn't stop laughing when I read that the first time. I thought it was absolutely hilarious that the end of the story by Mr. Ryan here concluded with the crocodile eating all of the ducks and taking over their secret base. So I just wanted to read that while we were waiting for people to join. I waited 3 minutes. That's really all I can do because most people are going to be watching this after the fact. So I hope you enjoyed a fractured fairy tale based on the Three Little Pigs by my friend Ryan. Today I have, first of all, just some housekeeping. I'm going to keep this to 30 minutes. I just set my little Pomodoro timer, which is this little cool octagon thing, and we're going to keep these at 30 minutes because I could talk forever, and I want to make sure that we keep this in a time frame. And I thought it was an awesome story too, Kat. Thanks for commenting. Today's topic is going to be change your story, change your life. And it is because a lot of times today in modern therapy, a lot of therapists will have you going back and back and back and back and back. I mean, I've heard of some going all the way to imagining when you're in the womb, if you experience trauma there. I'm not arguing the science or the data behind any of that. I just think there's a point of diminishing return with that. And what I think a lot of people could do in a lot more effective use, with a more effective use of their time, is to change the narrative of their life. So, for example, imagine that you have a traumatic situation. Something terrible happened to you when you were younger. You could look at it one way as saying, I had this terrible thing happen to me because I'm a terrible person and I deserved it. And then live your life with that narrative over that situation. How do you think that'll work out? What do you think you'll think about yourself going through life with that narrative? Or you could say, I had a terrible thing done to me. There are some bad people in the world. It had nothing to do with me. I was just the victim that they chose at that time, and I'm going to overcome that. How do you think that person is going to live their life? There's just a drastic difference in how they're going to live their lives. It reminds me of the parable of the two sons of an alcoholic father. Two boys, 1 or 2 years apart. They both grew up under an abusive alcoholic father. And just, it was a terrible experience. When they became 18 and they moved out of the house, one became an alcoholic himself. And the other went on to live a very fruitful and successful life and never touched a drop of alcohol. When the first son was asked, like, why did you choose to become an alcoholic? He said simply, well, my dad was an alcoholic. What else could I do? What else could you expect? When the other son was asked, the successful CEO who never touched a drop of alcohol in his life, when that guy was asked, why did you abstain from alcohol? Why did you never touch alcohol for your whole life? And he said, what more could you expect? My dad was an alcoholic. Of course I'm not going to be an alcoholic. Two people in the same environment, radically different outcomes. And so many of the outcomes that we live with every single day is based on what we believe about our past, the narrative we choose to believe and repeat to ourselves about our past. For example, every one of us is guilty of this. And when I say guilty, I mean we all do this. It's just our natural tendency. We are story-making creatures. We will give narrative and a story. We'll see the most random thing, and in our minds, we will concoct a story about what we think happened, whether we want to or not. It's just how we're wired, right? And you have stories about yourself. For example, I always fill in the blank. When you say that in your mind, what is that blank? So like, oh man, I'm always, maybe it's late, or maybe it's always falling behind, or like I always lose my keys, or I always, whatever. Like, you have a narrative about your life, but here's the most important thing about this. The belief that you have about yourself, it's like your hardware. It's like the fundamental operating system of your life. I don't think this is the most important part about you, is what you believe about yourself, and what you believe about others, and what you believe about the world. Let's look at another example. Imagine you wake up in the morning and you think that the whole world is out to get you, that the world is filled with mean, cruel people that are just out to take advantage of you. How would you live your life? You'd constantly be looking over your shoulder. You would never trust people, and you'd constantly be trying to find how people are going to take advantage of you. It's not a great way to live, right? Or you could look at it another way too and just say like, oh, everything's great, everything's fine, or whatever, and then you could be really gullible also. Like, there are two extremes. But the point is, what you believe about yourself is the absolute most important thing about what makes you, you. And we're all familiar with the news. CNN, Fox News, whatever your thing is. It's possible to take a news story, just an objective event that happened, and spin it one way or another. The same exact news story. One headline will read one, and the other headline will read the other. And that's what you do with your life. And so I had a friend text me today and was talking about just that therapy has been really beneficial for him. It's been very helpful. But that he moved to a different place and wasn't able to access that same counseling and stuff. And I was just thinking about him and thinking of what's something that he could do today, what's something that you could do today watching this that would help you so much in your life, specifically with depression, specifically with anxiety, specifically about self-confidence and identity. And what came to me is this: change your story, change your life. Because when you have a really bad story that you say about yourself, you start to believe it. It doesn't matter how many, like, you say anything, enough times you're going to start to believe it. And what I want to challenge you today is to just first and foremost to become aware of your thinking. It's called metacognition. I'm not going to nerd out, but it's thinking about your thinking, specifically as it pertains to specific thoughts that you have about yourself. We can go into like what you believe about others, what you believe about God, what you believe about the world. That's a whole nother topic. But specifically, I want you to identify the thoughts that you think about yourself. Because like, when I used to be super insecure, fearful. Like when I was growing up, like I was pretty good at the drums and I had that going for me and I really latched onto that for my identity. But other than that, I was a really, really insecure kid. And I would always say to myself things like, oh, you're such a loser. Oh, why did you do that? Oh, you're always screwing up. You're always effing things up or whatever, you know? And you can't say those things over and over and over about yourself in your mind and have a really happy life. You just can't. There's no fairy tale ending to those thoughts. It's nothing but discouragement, depression, anxiety, and then what happens? You look for validation for those things to happen in your life. And this is one of my favorite topics of all time. It's called your reticular activating system. And now it's a big word. You can abbreviate it, RAS. It's not a big deal. I promise it's really easy. Let me give you an example. Have you ever been shopping for a specific type of car before? Like a red Camaro. All of a sudden you see Camaros everywhere. You see red Camaros immediately. Or you're shopping for a Tesla. You see Teslas everywhere. Whereas before you were shopping for a Tesla, like you didn't notice them at all. Did everybody go out overnight and get a new Tesla? No. You just started paying attention to them. Why did you start paying attention to them? It's because you started thinking about Teslas. And here's the thing, my friend. If you get one thing out of this whole episode, it's this. When you think thoughts, every single thought you have is like a seed. What's in a seed? Well, you don't know. Because like, what did somebody say? It says you can count the amount of seeds in an apple, but you can't count the amount of apples in a seed. Because if you plant that seed in the ground and it grows into a tree and there's tons of apples on it, there are tons of seed inside of those apples. The point is, every thought you think is telling your brain, hey, this is important, pay attention to this. And so in the same way, if you're shopping for a certain kind of car and you see them everywhere, it's because you're thinking about them, you're telling your brain this is important, and then your brain starts looking for it, right? Does that make sense? Okay, well, here's the thing. What if the thing you're thinking is, I'm such a loser. Nothing ever works out for me. Everything I do is a burning dumpster fire. What do you think your brain is going to be looking for? It's going to be looking for validation on those things. And the thing is, like, reality doesn't change a bit, but your focus and what you're paying attention to in that reality does. That's why this is so important. You have to be so careful about the thoughts that you think. You have to be so careful about the thoughts that you think about yourself. You have negative view of yourself, you have negative thoughts about yourself, it's going to be really hard. The whole world could be like celebrating you and cheering you on and encouraging you, and that's all you'll see is the negative. That's the power of our thinking, and that's why we got to get away from stinking thinking, especially as it pertains to us. Because specifically in this little message today, I got 16 more minutes, 18 more minutes, whatever that is. I really want to really reach to the person who either is looking for therapy but doesn't have access to it, has never tried therapy. I want to give big picture ideas that anybody at home can apply to improve the quality of their life. And one of the biggest things you can do is change the way you talk about yourself to yourself. Do you talk to yourself? Of course you do. And if you said no in your mind, that's you talking to yourself. We all do it. But what are we saying about ourselves? Steve Harvey has this great example. He says, every day we wake up and we have a factory that has 1,000 employees of it inside of it. And what we wake up and say to those employees is what they're going to go to work all do. I don't know if I'm sure you have. You wake up late or whatever, and you're like, oh, today's going to be a crap day. Tell me the time you said that to yourself and the day was actually awesome. I don't think it exists, right? Because what you're looking for, what you're going to produce, what you're going to see everywhere is today's going to be a crap day, and you're going to get validation of why it's such a crap day. And this is to say nothing about energy levels, about how like what we believe and what we think changes our physiology, changes our literal, the wavelengths, the degree of energy that we produce. Emotions are just energy in motions. Well, what's the firing of your synapses in your brain? That's all electricity, right? So it's those electrical impulses that create emotion, right? And emotion is the thing that really can, it makes, emotions make excellent servants and terrible masters. Okay, you can quote me on that. It's absolutely true. So back to change your story, change your life. I got some notes here that I made, and I'm just going to kind of go off them. So I shared about the two sons of the alcoholic father. One is extremely successful. The other is an alcoholic. Same father, same circumstances, same thing growing up. Totally different outcomes. And that's, I want to talk about that now for a second. So you have had things that have happened to you that have been really negative. I promise you have. If you're alive, you have had negative things happen to you. And so what do you think about those negative things? Like, what you think about those negative things is so important to who you are, the person that you're going to be, how you're going to feel, how you're going to act, all that. I already covered that. But what I want to encourage you to do is to find people that have gone through those same things and who are now on the other side of them and who are overcomers, right? Because we are all going to have problems in life. The only people without problems in life are in a cemetery. Okay? So if we're alive, we're going to have problems. And the idea is to find people that have gone through the similar situations that you have and learn from them. Don't recreate the wheel. Why would you do that? If somebody has already gone through the same thing and overcome that thing, learn as much as you can from them. You don't need a therapist to do that. You don't need a counseling degree to do that. There are so many people in life that have gone through hard things and who have done the hard work of figuring out how to think, how to recover, how to cope, how to deal with all that trauma, all that stuff. We've all had stuff happen to us. Some much more horrific than others, right? The person that comes to my mind is Dr. Edith Eger. And at the time of this recording, she's still alive. She's got to be like 98 years old. She was a survivor of the Holocaust. She was 16 years old when she went in. Within the first hour of being at Auschwitz, she saw her whole family, all her parents, everybody that was older, go up in a chimney, go up in smoke, like they were gone, right? That's how her time in a concentration camp started, right? She experienced horrific things. In fact, if you really want to dig deep into human nature, study people who have been through the Holocaust. It is the most rubber meets the road, practical learning you can ever do. I'm getting chills just thinking about it. Well, anyway, she had the most horrific things happen imaginable, went and survived, right? And then she went on to live her life completely dysfunctional. Of course, right? And she didn't realize that she had to deal with all these emotions until I think she was 40. She had divorced her husband and was just a wreck, living on the very edge of sanity, of like a mental breakdown. And she would have these flashbacks, nightmares, all that. And finally she said, I need to figure out what to do about this. And she ended up starting to study psychology, starting to learn about how the brain works in conjunction with the body. And she went to school, she went to more school. She ended up being a licensed therapist, a counselor. And today, not only has she been able to overcome all of those traumatic events and experiences, but she now helps other people go through them. She actually works with our special warfighters, our special forces soldiers in all branches of the military out of her practice. I think it's California. But I cannot recommend her books more highly. The one is called The Gift by Dr. Edith Eger, and the other is called The Choice. The Choice is the one you should read first. The Choice is about her experiencing the Holocaust, because this is the main takeaway from that book. And it's actually what her mom's, one of the last words her mom said to her. And it was, they can take away everything from you, but they can never take away what is in your mind. So make sure you choose to think the right thoughts that are going to help you and not harm you. And that's something all of us can say. That's something all of us can live. No, like the whole world can be crashing down around you, but nobody can take away the thoughts that you think inside of your own mind. And are those thoughts helpful or harmful? It's not really, there's not too many thoughts that are, well, I guess there's a bunch of thoughts that are like spiritual Doritos. Like they don't really get us forward, and they're not too detrimental. So I guess that does exist. But the point is, what are you thinking about? It's so important to think about your thinking. And I think I did finish my story about Steve Harvey, about the 1,000 workers. Like every day you wake up, the things that you say to yourself, put those 1,000 workers to work for you doing those things. Amen. Thank you, God. And so what are you putting them to work for you doing? Are they going to be helpful? Are they going to be good? Are they going to be encouraging? Or are they going to be working against you the whole day? Because here's the thing, and I'm just going to be really honest, I didn't realize I could change my own thoughts until I think I was 25 years old. Like, have you ever really thought about that? Like, can you change the way that you think? I used to say no. In fact, I just asked my mom this the other day, and she said, well, no, I don't think you can. You absolutely can. And the way you know that you can do this is, imagine for a moment you had a big screen TV suspended above your head, and every single thought that you think is projected onto that big screen TV, right? With you when you go to work, when you wake up, when you're around your family, when you go out. Like, would you be able to change what is going on that TV so you don't make a like absolute idiot of yourself when you're going out in public or whatever? Absolutely. And so this whole idea of thinking about your thinking, only allowing thoughts that are going to help you in and allowing those things to grow, it takes practice. It's like a muscle, right? But the main point that I'm talking about today, like this is a huge topic. I mean, I could probably do every Tuesday and Thursday for like 6 months on metacognition and thinking and a reticular activating system, all this stuff. But it's some of the most important work you'll ever do. It's like going to the gym every day mentally. But the first part to changing is awareness. You just have to be aware. And then the second part is a desire to change. So your life right now is the perfect outcome for all the events that have happened, and the way you think and the choices that you've made and everything you've done so far in your life. Like what you have right now and what you're experiencing right now is the sum total of all your thoughts, experiences, the things that have happened to you, the things that you've done, everything, right? And so if you want to change your outcomes, you have to change your inputs. And if you want to change your inputs, you got to go back to the root, which is your thinking, right? And so all this to say, I really want to focus in specifically about issues of the past, because there's a reason that there's a small rearview mirror and a great big windshield on your car. If you tried to drive looking only at that small rearview mirror, what's going to happen? If you try to live your life only looking back, like a lot of therapists suggest, I don't believe that that's very constructive. And also, just for the record, if you go to therapy and when you leave that office, you feel worse about your life, you feel more hopeless, you feel like discouraged, you need to get a different therapist. Not all therapists are created equal. Like sometimes it takes 4, 5, 6, 7 times before you find the right fit, right? I'm not saying the work is easy. Sometimes the work is really, really hard. And sometimes when you work through things and you really ask yourself questions like, what do I believe about this situation? What do I see about myself in this situation? Sometimes that's really heavy. And sometimes that's like just a lot of weight to carry. But at the end of the day, you should feel encouraged and hopeful about your future and that you can change. You should have more hope. That hope is the litmus test for effective therapy. If you do not get a greater and greater measure and degree of hope in your life as a result of therapy, get a different therapist. Okay? Okay. So I want to go through my notes here and specifically about your past. So when you think about this is wild, you guys. So psychologists say now that between 80 and 90% of what we think every single day is the same thing that we thought the previous days. And so that the real change in our thinking comes in this tiny 10% window of new novel experiences and thoughts that we have every single day. That's wild, right? And so that goes back to this awareness thing, this being present thing, because you have to be able to recognize where you are. You can't just go on autopilot and expect to change. That's silly, right? So if you want to change your life, if you want to try to not be as discouraged, not be as heavy, not be as depressed, you have to do something different. And a lot of that comes with just being present and being aware. So change your story, change your life is the topic of today's discussion. Wrapping this up, thinking about your thinking. How do you talk to yourself about yourself? How do you talk to yourself about the things that have happened to you? How, like seriously think about it. Like you go through a really messy divorce. This person's such a jerk. Like they're so toxic. They're like, it's just all negative, 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 negative. What are you going to do to redeem that? You know my friend, Dr. Edith Eger, that I just referenced before? One of the most healing things you can do is find purpose in your pain. It's like a healing balm. It literally causes those painful wounds that have been so toxic and so harmful to you and have been holding you back for so long. It literally brings healing to them. Because I tell you what, there's nothing more beautiful than taking something negative that happened to you and sharing it with somebody else who's going through it and helping them along. It's one of the most beautiful things you can do. And in helping that other person and bringing purpose to your pain, you're going to bring healing to yourself. So that's another thing, maybe a topic for another day, but to find purpose in your pain. How can you use the negative thing that happened to you and help other people? Were you the victim of abuse? Talking to somebody who's going through abuse right now as a previous victim of abuse is a world of difference between somebody that's never been abused before, never experienced that, trying to talk to them. When you've experienced it yourself, like there's an instant connection, right? And that's just one example of thousands of different experiences that we can all have where you can bring purpose to your pain. Last thing I'm going to say is, who are the characters in your life? Because guess what? Change your story, change your life. You have the pen. You're writing your own movie. You get to do that. Like, that's the most amazing thing in the world. Like, we've been made in the image of God. We're creators. Like, we're made in the image of the greatest creator of all time. We are creating our existence and our life every single moment. One of my favorite quotes of all time is, "Show me your friends and I'll show you your future." If you want to change your life, if you want to change the outcomes that you've been experiencing, take a look at the cast. Take a look at the supporting characters in your life. Because if it's nothing but negativity, like for example, for me, I used to be a drug addict. Absolutely full blown, right? The day I threw away my phone, I literally threw away my phone. Nobody could get a hold of me. And guess what happened? Guess what happened? Nobody tried to get a hold of me. Everybody knew I lived. But that's such a thin fabric holding together social groups, drugs or drinking or whatever. If you stop doing that, see who really still comes around, right? Anyway, check in on who is around your life. Become aware. Every single interaction that you have with people that you talk to on a regular basis, do you feel better about your life or worse after talking to them? There are some people that we can't change. Family, coworkers, stuff like that. You're going to have to find a way to find the positive things inside of that. You're going to have to find a positive way to look at it. You're in a really crummy job. You're not really happy with the way things are going there. Well, is it serving a greater purpose and helping you get to where you want to be in life? Right? That's changing the narrative on that story. It's not just, oh, I got to go to my crappy job, whatever. It's, no, I have to go to my crappy job so that I don't have to go to that crappy job anymore. I get to do A, B, C, D, E, F, G, whatever you want to do with your life, right? So anyway, become self-aware. Think about your thinking. What's the story you're telling yourself, right? change your story, change your life. That's the end of today's episode. Thank you so much for tuning in. I'd love for you to subscribe to my YouTube channel. I need 50 subscribers before I can go live on YouTube. And I would love to do that instead of Facebook and Meta, because frankly, I just don't trust Facebook and Meta. Not that I super trust YouTube, but I just think it's a better platform in a lot of ways, especially for this medium. That said, I need your feedback so much. Like, I have no idea if what I'm sharing is helpful or not. I need to know things that I said that are, things that I said that aren't, things that you'd like me to share about. Oh, absolutely, Kat. Thank you very much for tuning in. I appreciate you so much. I need the feedback. So if you would be so kind as to let me know things that you think I could maybe talk about that could help, or that I could share that would be beneficial, I desperately need that, right? Because I could talk for days, and that wouldn't necessarily be a good thing, but I want to know what specifically to talk about. So thanks so much for tuning in. Thank you so much. It means the world to me. Have a great rest of your day. And let's think about our thinking and change our story so that we can change our life for the better and make the world a better place. Thanks again. God bless. Bye-bye.